Hey, thank y'all for joining us. We're very excited to announce something which is both bipartisan on a bicameral basis, and that is a paid family leave plus policy, paid family leave plus much more, that we think benefits both the family, the child, the employer, and society. So we're very pumped about this, if you will. And our goal is to produce a bill that gives family support during a child's first year, and this bill accomplishes that. It is family leave, but can be used for so much more. It's about flexibility, giving parents access to the resources they need when they need it the most. And the bill provides options, not mandates, that work in tandem with existing state and employer family medical leave policies. Now, there's a widespread belief among Republicans and Democrats that we need to support families in the child's first year. And this is a bipartisan, bicameral bill, and a bill that shows that Congress, a divided Congress, can actually pass something. I'll quickly go through the mechanics after my colleague has a chance to speak.
Thanks so much, Bill. First, I want to start by thanking Bill for taking so much time. We've been working on this bill together for months, and I'm really proud to announce the first bipartisan proposal and, of course, now bicameral proposal to address the issue of paid family leave. What's really exciting about this proposal, in addition to the fact that it has support from both Republicans and Democrats in the House and the Senate, is that it provides a complement to existing policies and existing proposals that allows families to have more choices and options during the first year of their child's life, whether they're giving birth to a loved baby or adopting a baby and welcoming that child into their home. This is particularly important in my home state of Arizona. Right now, 62% of families don't have access to even unpaid leave through the Family Medical Leave Act. So our proposal provides an option for those families to either provide paid help to take care of their baby during that first year of life, or to take some time off to be with their baby during those first months. In particular, I want to take a second to thank Senators Capito and Manchin for joining us. I know how important this issue is in their state, as it is for Bill and I. Mechanics?
Oh, you want to have Shelley say something?
Yeah, Shelley, you want to say some things?
Just really briefly, yeah. If we want to go to the mechanics first, that's fine too. Well, I want to thank you all, and I want to thank Senators Sinema and Cassidy for their really ingenuity in putting together what I think is a really creative and flexible solutions, such that you can see it's gathering the support of not just Republicans and Democrats, but both sides, the Senate and the House. And I think that's particularly exciting. I'm going to kind of put a little bit of the human face on it. You can tell I'm a long way from having my own children, but my children are having their children. I have 6 grandchildren and 1 on the way. All six parents work. That first year of life is so tough for the adjustments to the house, the adjustments back into your workplace, getting yourself back to the right, health yourself as the mother who has given birth, or if it's an adopted child, just recognizing the changes in a family that occur. And, when a child gets sick in the first 6 months of life, which happens, Bill, you're the doctor, a lot, a lot, it does happen. When you get the cost of a car seat, a crib sheets, new diapers that they grow out of every 4 to 6 weeks, and as for those first-time parents know exactly what I'm talking about, all of the things that you have with particularly your first child, but a baby in general, I think this is significant to kind of take the air out of the tense balloon that sometimes comes along with maintaining a job, getting back to work, and creating really the best environment for that child. And I know there's study after study that show and what a difference it makes in a child's life to have the nurturing, the caressing, the talking, the easing into the life of a family that a baby really does feel in those first several months of life that are absolutely critical to their well-being. So I'm just really pleased that you guys have come up with a really good solution that for a rural state, we probably have matching statistics to Arizona in terms of availability of family paid medical leave or maternity leave. And so this, I think, is something that I think is really very needed, but also a great way to get this conversation going to a point to where we can actually get something across the line. So thank you all.
Thank you. I'll speak briefly to mechanics, and my colleagues may weigh in. This does not raise taxes. It does not have mandates. We give options to the parent, and I'll speak in the feminine, but it could also be the father, if you will, that could access these same benefits. And the way the mechanics work, under the Tax Cut and Jobs Act bill last year, we increased the child tax credit from $1,000 to $2,000. And what we've done is we allow a family having a newborn or adopting to pull forward some of that benefit so that the family, instead of getting $2,000 that first year, can get $5,000. Let me finish this and I'll let our congressional colleagues speak. Can get $5,000. Now they have the option what they can do with this. They can take that $5,000 and they can use it for income replacement if they decide to stay home, or if they need to return to work, they can use it for childcare. So again, that income replacement that gives the family the option of how to do this. We think it's great for the employer. If the employer has invested so much into an employee, and now he loses that employee because she decides she needs to stay home and breastfeed, everything he has invested in that employee has lost. Now the employee remains attached to the workplace and can return to work should she choose. We also think that's good for the employee. Studies show that the first year of life is most expensive. We addressed that as Shelley just kind of put the human face on. But also that if the employee remains attached to the workplace, her salary goes up. So much more than the $500 a year that she will not receive for the next certain number of years. And so the increase in salary related to remaining attached to the workplace is far greater than the $500 that she will be missing out on until the $5,000 is paid back. Let me stop there and allow our House colleagues to speak. Colin, you want to go first, man?
Sure, absolutely.
Hey, thanks for doing this, brother.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, good afternoon, and I want to thank Senators Cassidy and Sinema and my House co-lead, Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, for joining us in this bill. Earlier this year, I took a leave from Congress as my wife and I had our first child. And, the House doesn't actually have a leave plan, but we figured it out. And it was important for me to be there for the birth of my son. I was raised by a single mother, and I know how important it is to have and to be in your child's life. But we have to do more to support working families. Studies show that when parents take that crucial time to be with their new babies, it leads to better outcomes for everyone. Our effort here today will work hand in hand with policies that are already happening locally in Dallas. In my community in North Texas, cities have made progress in helping families. The city of Dallas is on track to implement a paid sick leave law to many families across Dallas. It's a great law and it's great progress for us in Dallas, and I commend the city for its leadership and its work on that. That's part of why I'm here today. Not only does this bill have a real shot of becoming law because it is bipartisan, it also provides working and middle-class families with the flexibility and much-needed cash in hand that they need within weeks of the arrivals of their new baby. The bill will also help families who have access to paid family leave through their jobs. This money can help with child care or other costs that they incur. And believe me, I know firsthand about the costs that you incur in the first year of life. It is a very real thing, and it's something that I'm happy to be able to help families with. Parents need to be able to be there for their children in the early days, just like I was for my wife, Allie, and our son, Jordan. And as we work toward guaranteed family leave, this bill is a good first step. North Texans sent me to Congress to get things done, and this bill, this bipartisan bill, allows us to help families now. As families face soaring health care costs and prescription drug costs, child care costs, and an ever more competitive economy, we have to find common ground to provide real relief for them. I want to thank all of my colleagues for joining us in this effort and for their work on this tax benefit. The child care tax credit will make this country a better place, and I want to turn it over now to my colleague, Stefanik, from New York.
Thank you so much, Colin, and of course, thank you to our senators. Thank you, Senator Cassidy, Senator Moore Capito, and Senator Sinema, my former House colleague, for their vision behind this bill, and I'm so excited to be the Republican lead in the House. Paid leave is a bipartisan issue, and our proposal is pro-family, it's pro-business, and it's pro-21st century economy. We know that working families today are very different than working families a generation ago or even 10 to 20 years ago. And we need to make sure that our policies keep pace with the 21st century workforce and the challenges that stem from the 21st century. This bill empowers families with the choice to receive upfront financial assistance during that first critical year after birth or after adoption. And this is without raising taxes, and it's without increasing federal mandates. It expands the child tax credit to make it more flexible. It is compatible with state and local laws, which is important for a state like New York. And it also enhances, it doesn't deter from the trend of businesses that are offering very generous paid leave packages. I'm so excited that we have an equal number of Republican and Democrat original co-sponsors in the House. My colleague Brian Stile, I'm excited to have here today, as well as Jamie Herrera Butler. Who else? Jamie Herrera Butler, and there are a few more Republicans on this bill, which will be when we drop it. Thank you.
Great.
I'll hand
Take
it
some
over to
questions?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Congressman Stiles and
Yeah, and Brian Stile, of course.
Thank you, Elise. I appreciate it. I think it's an exciting day today, and I thank the leadership of my colleagues here as this bill has been introduced. The first year of a child is one of the most expensive, and to be able to take advantage of the child tax credit in year one, I think is critical. I think one of the unique things that we see here is that it does and accomplishes so much without raising taxes, without destabilizing Social Security, and without a government mandate. And so I'm excited to be introducing the bill along with my colleagues and thank everyone for their work. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I want to thank my colleagues as well. This is exactly what bipartisanship should be all about, coming together to actually solve a real problem, make sure we're helping families, especially in northern New Jersey where I'm from, and doing it where you're helping people without raising taxes is an excellent win for everybody. And, you know, as I've got young kids, and that those first months are critical, and I know that it's so important that we make sure our families can do everything they can to be home with their families. And so I'm really grateful to Senate leadership here, to the House leaders, our House leaders on both sides for bringing this legislation up. Colin, excellent work. Senator, great to see you. And, you know, the fact that Kirsten Sinema's here is always a phenomenal thing, right? Because, I mean, she just brings a lot of power to the room and is an unbelievable leader in bringing people together. So thank you so much, Kirsten. Thanks so much.
And the other Republican is Anthony Gonzalez. I forgot the third one.
We'll actually put out a list of all the sponsors, co-sponsors in both House and Senate, because we've got a really good list, and it's going to grow.
Yeah.
Questions?
Question.
I'm so glad you've asked that question, because in addition to communicating with the White House, we've also been lucky to, from the very beginning of this process, include a lot of nonprofit and advocacy stakeholders from around the country. So we can actually share with you a list of the groups that we've been communicating with, but we have been in contact with the White House. We've also been in contact with groups like, lots of bipartisan policy center groups. We've got a long list of them, AII. Groups that we've been consulting with for about the last 6 months as we work to develop this plan.
We work very closely with stakeholders, trying to hear concerns. And the White House, of course, is one of those stakeholders. And we feel, of course, their support will be critical. But having the support of stakeholders across the board.
You okay?
Doc?
Yeah, he's a doctor.
Doctor.
You know, she probably locked her knees up, standing up against the wall. Yeah, and if she... Shelley's bringing some water. She all right?
She's okay.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Will you be attending the paid family leave summit next week and discussing this plan with Trump?
We've been invited to the summit next week, and I'm interested in ensuring that we have lots of voices that represent all of the folks who have been working on this for many years. You know, one of the things that Bill and I are really lucky to have done in this process is also communicate with senators who've been working on a bipartisan family leave working group. And so we're communicating with them and also working to make sure that we're reaching out, again, with the White House and stakeholders throughout the community.
I covered the white paper when you introduced it in late July. Since that happened, were there any major changes as you were gathering feedback and things like that? It sounds as though people might be able to use the money to purchase supplies that they need as a new parent, for example. Is that new?
That's actually not new. That was part of our original plan. The idea is that the plan gives flexibility to families to use the money in whatever part of child rearing is most appropriate for them. So for instance, if a family already gets paid leave through their employer, they could choose to use this $5,000 if they so choose to use it for supplies, for childcare, for purchasing cribs, for taking additional time off beyond what their employer provides. There's a flexibility in the plan.
And so one thing that we did in the interim is came up with technical fixes to how the mechanics of delivering the dollar would actually work. So it's more the kind of technical nuance as opposed to the conceptual, the concepts of the bill, if that makes sense.
One of the things that's really important to know about the bill is that, again, it's entirely optional for a family to use. So if a family chooses to bring those $5,000 from their child tax credit into their home for that first year of life, they'll still continue to get their child tax credit in the 10 years that follow, just a slightly reduced amount. So they're not paying anything back, not putting any money out of their pocket, just getting to utilize those dollars sooner during that first year of life, as Bill said, is so important.
And I'm going to emphasize, if the parent stays attached to the workplace, her salary will rise far more than the $500 that she is pulling forward, far more. And so we think that, and holistically, the family is better off if this is, if she receives that support and again can remain attached.
Another point on the benefit of getting this $5,000 early, if a family chooses it, is it alleviates the need for debt. Often new families find themselves going into debt to finance a child. Colin, is that your experience as well? Yes, yeah.
Oh, it's not cheap.
That's right. And so this helps families from having to deal with paying back loans or anything else that they might go into debt for during that time because they're receiving these dollars, if they so choose, right up front.
Do you see this legislation working in tandem with any of the other family leave proposals that are out on the table?
I think what's great about our legislation is that it is a complement. It's a complement to existing law and existing policy, both at local and federal levels, and it's a complement to other pieces of legislation that have been introduced by our colleagues in both the House and the Senate, some of which we're actually co-sponsors of.
I also think the fact that it is a co-equal of Republicans and Democratic members, certainly in the House, just to highlight the bipartisan nature of it. And one of the aspects that I think is so strong about this bill is it complements what businesses are already doing voluntarily. So it doesn't take away that incentive for businesses to invest in paid leave policies for their workforce.
And just practically speaking, we're the only bill which is bipartisan, period, end of story. And that in of itself gives it greater potential to achieve that immediate need. And we do feel, let's do what that is before us, and that is the most pressing thing is a new parent with her child.
We have time for about one more question. The Senate has another vote here.
Does it, okay,
I already asked one.
go ahead.
This one is geared toward Democrats. Obviously, many members of your party are very much in support of adding a tax so that people can be able to fund not just parental leave, but also sick leave. How do you bring along more of your colleagues? And also, this is obviously a huge accomplishment having a bipartisan bill, but you know, the tax law was very much a Republican legislation. So how do you kind of, again, win over some of your colleagues to the idea that this is a good place to leverage?
That's a great question. The reality is that all Americans right now experience the benefit of an increased child tax credit. So regardless of your feelings about past policies or past votes, families are receiving this child tax credit. And that's a boon for families, particularly working families and everyday families in the states that we represent. What's exciting about this piece of legislation is it acts as a complement, both to existing policy and to ideas that are floating out on both sides of the aisle. So rather than acting in any kind of conflict, our piece of legislation provides assistance to families right now. You know, I can tell you that as a child, my family grew up in really difficult circumstances. We faced a lot of financial troubles. And a benefit like this would have been a real amazing opportunity for my mom as she was raising, 3 little kids on her own. And I think that families at home in each of our states, regardless of their political affiliation, are looking for help as they start that first year of life with their new baby, whether it's an adopted baby or a baby they've just welcomed to their home through birth. And they're not concerned at all about the politics or the partisanship. And again, that's what's so great about this proposal, is it isn't engaged in any partisanship. It's just a solution for families right now.
And I will say this is the sweet spot between where Republicans and Democrats can agree. Republicans look at that payroll tax as regressive, disproportionately falling upon the very people we're trying to help. And statistically, many of them will lose their jobs because of an increase in payroll tax. That's just what the economists say. And so if we have a sweet spot where we're addressing a concern, in fairness, long promoted by Democrats, but also a concern to us, the grandmother, but without raising taxes and with no mandates. I mean, on and on and on, that whole sweet spot that we've all spoken of. I think that's why ours may have legs.
And I think too, you have to look at what in the land of, you go to the land of reality of where are we really going to be able to put a stake in the ground, commit ourselves as Republicans and Democrats, as a country, to this concept of how important it is to have these policies in place for our families and our young families. And so, we're not gonna get all the way to the moon on our first step, but we need to start, launching the lunar module, because we're behind in the developed world. We're way behind on this issue. And I think that is difficult for our young families.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks so much.
I know.